Welcome to Figure Eight, where we feature inspiring stories of women entrepreneurs who have grown their businesses to 7 and 8 figures revenue. If you're in the mix of growing a bigger business, these stories are for you. Join us as we explore where the tough spots are, how to overcome them, and how to prepare yourself for the next portion of the climb. I'm your host, Julie Ellis. I'm an author, entrepreneur, and a growth and leadership coach who co-founded, grew, and exited an 8-figure business. This led me to exploring why some women achieve great things. And that led to my book, Big Gorgeous Goals. Let's explore the systems, processes, and people that help us grow our businesses to new heights. If you're interested in growing your business, this podcast will help. Now, let's get going. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Figure Eight. Today, I'm talking with Jacqueline Sava, and Jacqueline founded her company, Soak Wash, almost 20 years ago. She makes beautiful wash for all of your most important, delicate items that you have crafted, worn, made, all of the different places. And so she is at the helm of the company and is the director of possibilities. And they sell their soap wash all over the world. She's built an e-commerce business. She's gone to distribution, and it is always an interesting journey, as we're going to talk about today. Soak Wash is made in Canada, and it's free of dyes and phosphates, ammonia, and harsh surfactants, which are the things that separate the dirt away from your clothes. And so she is also working in the space of sustainability and how we look after the things that we own. I want to say welcome to you, and thanks for joining me, Jacqueline.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. It's so good to talk to you. Do you want to tell me a little bit about how you came to start this business and what it's been like for you over the last almost 20 years?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely didn't set out on the detergent trajectory. I was designing knitwear. So my background's industrial design, so product design. And I was designing knitwear while I was doing my thesis at Rhode Island School of Design. And then when I graduated, I was still doing knitwear. So I was hats and accessories, scarves, mittens, machine knit pieces, and cut and sewn. And when I started selling my knitwear, people were asking how to take care of it. And so I was selling it at craft shows like One of a Kind and that kind of thing. And then I did get a wholesale, like a distributor, selling my knit accessories. And it kept coming back, how do we take care of this? And we would say, use Snuggle, use baby shampoo. And then I was like, this isn't really the right answer. And so I have a real core memory. I had lunch with a colleague who worked in plastics manufacturing, where I had been doing some consulting work, and she worked for a co-packer, so someone who does private label packaging of soaps and stuff like that. And so she'd come to lunch and she'd bring me like a bubble bath or a shampoo where the label was backwards, or like a lab sample. Do you like this fragrance? And she'd always bring me these treats. And so I said to her one day over lunch, I said, I wonder if we can make a wool wash that goes with the knits. And so that's how we developed the formula from a skincare background. So we call it skincare for your clothing, with like naturally derived ingredients from a skincare background. So it's so gentle you could take a bath in it. That's kind of how that started. And so soak was originally a secondary product to go with my knitwear. And then, things exploded from there. So it was our knitwear at the distributor with like a soak sitting next to it. And then we just started getting these inquiries about soak. And then someone said, there's this knitting industry and you could sell it to yarn stores, not just for finished knits. And so my mom and I went to our first knitting trade show, and we sent out all these bottle shaped postcards, and we did this like big mail merge. I can remember over that, you're single, right? So you're over the holidays and you have like the TV trays around the sofa and you're watching movies, stuffing envelopes with postcards, like literal mail merge, right? And so we sent out all these postcards that was like, come to the booth for a free sample. And then we walked in the convention center, and there was just like this massive lineup of people at our booth. Like it was like, we didn't even say hello to each other for like 5 hours. And that was kind of the beginning of Soak.
That's amazing. Well, then it does make sense, though, that when you're washing your most special things that you are also going to wear, that you want them to be washed with something really nice.
For sure. And we've learned that like at Soak, we try to take the fear out of hand washing and bring people, we call it from fear to elation, because a lot of people don't wear their favorite things because they don't know how they're going to take care of them. So we might buy cashmere socks or get fitted for a great bra or splurge on a sweater or have a great dress, but we don't wear it all the time because we're afraid we're going to spill something on it, or we're going to get it dirty, or we're not, and we don't know how to clean it, or we like wear it once and then we just like put it back away somewhere safe. And then don't take it out for a while. So at Soak, we really want to teach people to take care of those things, because you feel better when you wear your favorite clothes, whether it's, even if it's something at home, like if you have an antique quilt or you have a blanket that you love, like you feel better when you're cozy underneath it, and you're not going to like really use it unless you're comfortable with how you're going to take care of it.
Yeah, I think that's so true. So obviously from that very first trade show where you had that huge lineup to where you are today, which is, with a team and, multiple currencies, lots of different countries, like all the things that have happened, how would you say you have changed over the time that you have grown this business?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, once the Soak kind of got going, I went back to school part-time at night and did my MBA, because I realized pretty quickly that I didn't have the skill set that I needed to make these decisions and to grow the business. Because I have a BFA before that in industrial design. So I definitely decided I needed to know more. And then, the learning curve, I mean, it's steep, right? Like I didn't, that first summer we shipped all those orders and we filled out the paperwork wrong, and all the shipping and customs charges got sent to the customers. Baptism by fire. So yeah, like that first summer, all we did was like, and because it went all on their courier accounts, you couldn't just solve the problem. You had to wait for like each person to realize that there was a problem and then solve the problem. So just learning like the multitude of things that we didn't even know that we didn't know. That's my favorite question. Like, tell me what I don't know that I don't know. Because I know what I don't know, but I don't know what I don't know that I don't know. And that's where I'm going to get in trouble. So sort of my go-to question.
And so, and what's it like? I mean, I just think you're a very smart person. You got a graduate degree in business and you're an entrepreneur. And do you still, I know you still find so many things you still don't know. Like, how is it that is the constant journey of entrepreneurship?
Well, I mean, I never worked in a big consumer packaged good company. So pros and cons, right? Pros, nimble. I have a good vision. I know what I want to do. I figure out how I'm going to get there. But we've always been like, what's the problem? How we're going to solve it versus like, what's the strategy and how we're going to apply it. So our VP now, my VP, Suzanne, is magical. And I love her. I've known her for even before I started the business. And when she was looking for a new job, I was like, this is going to sound really weird, but I would like first rights of refusal. I was like, I don't know how much money you make. I don't know what you want to do, but I would like first rights of refusal for us to have a conversation, because she's come from a corporate background. So we will often like go full two halves of the circle to come to the same spot. And even if it's like numbers, forecasting, risk, how much of our market is, what percentage of our market is in this territory? Like I know the answer, and then she figures out and validates the answer. And so it's been really great because she, working for a really big company, was forced to like work with those bigger corporate restraints, whether it's about margins, whether it's about distribution, whether it's about not going too fast, and then I come from more of an entrepreneurial perspective, which is like, this is where we're going, this is where we're doing, this is how we're getting there. And so that balance of trying to push forward and then still kind of validating it is good. And it's not to say that I don't know what my margins are and look at them, but it's just, there's, it's just like a different kind of math that we use to kind of get to the same spot. So I think that's, and part of me wishes I had that background before. And then part of me is really glad that I didn't have that background. So it's kind of hard to know sometimes, because sometimes I'm like, I say like, what would I do if I were a real company?
Oops, I'm almost 20 years in. Maybe I am, but
it's funny, right? Because you don't feel like it, right? Because people, like I talked to somebody the other day who's doing like a really innovative washing situation, and they were like, we tested all these detergents and yours worked the best. And we want to move forward with yours as our preferred detergent for this washing system. And I was like, what? Like it still sounded really crazy to me, because I look at a bottle of soap and I still see it as like a project, right? Even like I went to Poland last year and we visited like tons of stores that carry our product and people who've been selling our product for a decade. And they're like, you always have to make this, don't ever stop, whatever. And I'm like looking at it with Polish labels and I'm like, is this real? Like for me, it sort of still doesn't always seem real, which I think is also a sign that it's still fun and good for me to work on. But other people are just like, oh, of course it's soak, right? I'm like, oh, okay, sure. Yeah.
It is so interesting. Well, and we've talked about, how the challenge of, scaling up this business where you're selling many, many, many small items, like your ticket price is small, and what that looks like compared to, somebody who's selling $10,000 items. When you're selling $10 items is very, very different in terms of what complexities come to play.
Yeah, we are suffering from like the problems for a business that typically with an overall revenue is much bigger than ours. So we are always perceived to be bigger than we are. Also because we've done a really excellent job at branding and positioning and marketing. Like I was at a lingerie trade show in New York and there was kind of this like brand speed dating thing and with buyers and brands. And I was like, this is new. I'll do this. And so I was talking to this woman. She had a store in Washington, D.C. She's like, I really love soak. It's really great. But our focus is really supporting, women-owned businesses, independent businesses, small businesses. I love your wash, but I don't really want to buy from like a giant conglomerate. And I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, let's start this conversation again. I was like, so my last 10 messages are like, my husband trying to figure out which lighting to put in our new renovated office. And like, these are the pictures of my kids in the warehouse. And there are 8 of us and we're women owned and, we're really little. And like, so she just fully like, just perceived we were like this giant detergent brand, and of course then she ordered soak and good customer and all those kind of things. But it was really, I find it really fascinating because people have like a much bigger, like, perception of where we are. And it's, it's on purpose. We launched with really strong marketing, a lot of product photography, taking a picture of liquid in a bottle is really hard. So we even on day one, we launched with a full, we used Flickr back in the day. If that doesn't date us, I don't know what will, but we launched with a database on Flickr where our customers and media could use the images that we produce so that we'd have brand continuity. So it's kind of this mix of like big brand games, even though we're like a smaller brand in that sense. So
yeah, which is really an interesting way to position yourself.
Yeah, I mean, we're a premium wash. Because we're made in Canada, because we have high quality ingredients, because we use post-consumer resin plastic, and also because competing on prices, like we knew from the beginning, competing on price is not going to get you anywhere in this category. One, like from a traditional detergent standpoint, and two, like as a small business in Canada, if we position on price, like somebody can always be cheaper. That's not where we're gonna be. So we've always positioned ourselves on like, we want to be the wash that's next to the clothes you love most and that you trust and take care of it. Because once we have that trust with our customers, then it's solidified and it kind of grows. But it is true that like a bottle retails for $18. And so when you work back to like wholesale pricing or distributor pricing, we are running a lot of bottles through our warehouse and through our spreadsheets and through our math. And even our little single use samples, I mean, they are like a gift with purchase. We order them like 200,000 a time, several times a year. So there's a lot of little units going through. So yeah, maybe my next business, we joke like diamonds, right? Like high value, small scale.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anything about the industry and I don't want to go there, but if I have to think about like business number 2, it's definitely like high value, small size.
Yeah. And that has different problems attached to it. That's the part I'm always interested in, because I mean, at Maple Sables, we did 25% of our sales in 1 month of the year. That month was August. And so you have to act like you're going to do that amount of sales in every single month. You need to, think about your supply chain and does your website have enough bandwidth? And it's so, I mean, that was one of our big problems. And
sure,
like every challenge is hard to solve in its own way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I met someone when we were really little and I feel like he was like somebody I knew's father who was in business or whatever. And he said like, you're always going to have problems and challenges. They're just going to get bigger and different. And at the time, I didn't understand it. And now I absolutely understand it. So I'm not afraid of problems and challenges. I like that. And they are just, they're always there. They're always just bigger and they're always just different.
And that idea that it's like a closed system, like as soon as you overcome any challenge, be it big or small, it will reveal the next one. Like there's a whole process of like the challenges don't end. So you can't actually like ever be like, I think I'm done.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that about it. You know, when I'm really exhausted of work, and not so much post pandemic because I do a mix of working at home and at the office. But when I used to commute every day to the office, I'd be like, okay, if I don't want to go to work, I'm going to get in the car, and if I can think of something I would rather do between when I leave and when I get to my office, then I can like contemplate exploring doing something else. But if I can't think of something else that I would rather do than this total storm, then I have to go to work that day. So that was sort of how I would, you know, and like maybe once or twice I would just divert and go to the rowing club and be like, actually what I need to do is like go have a workout and like not think about any of this for a little while. But most of the time I'm like, yeah, no, there's not anything else that I want to do more than this. So have at her, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even going for the workout doesn't mean you don't want to do this. It means you need some space to clear your head.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's clearing your head, I think, is one of the hardest things because there are only so many hours in the day. So really allocating time to clear your head is pretty important. So
yeah. And what would you say the best things have been for you about growing this business?
I really love the amount of like the people that we get to work with and the countries that we get to go to. Traveling for work is hard. I have another trip in 2 days and I'm like manic. I'm never a friendly person the day before I travel. Everybody on our team, including my husband, knows that. But I think that for me, it's the people. Like we're not just a D2C brand. We sell through distributors, we sell through stores. And so the amount of people whose lives are enriched by getting to sell soak is as amazing for me as it is just the people whose lives are enriched for having the product and using it at home. Because not only contributing to the income of like my whole team, which I think is amazing that I like keep people employed. That's very cool, but also the amount of revenue that it generates for like the, I don't know, somewhere near 1,000 probably independent retailers that sell our product as well. Right. And I think that's really cool. And because soak's a care product, so if you're a lingerie shop and somebody comes in to buy a bra, you want to teach them how to take care of it, because if they throw their bra in the washing machine and it gets all twisted and mangled, they're not going to blame themselves. They're not going to blame the bra. They're going to come back to the shop owner and be like, you sold me a crappy bra. You sold me a bra that will get tangled. And so soak helps kind of mitigate that risk for the shop owner as well. And so it adds value for them to make them be able to give something to their customer of value as well, to help kind of mitigate that risk of unhappy customers. So I really love the people that we meet. And that's one of my favorite parts about traveling. Like when I went to Poland, as I said, and we did store visits, or whether I'm at a trade show, or we do a couple big consumer events a year where we get to be face-to-face with our end users as well and talk to them, and then collaborating with brands and that kind of thing. So I really love that aspect of it.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's that, like, it gives you that ability to educate as well, for people to learn how they can talk to their customers in a way that, you know, it extends the life of their product and, you know, puts them in that trusted kind of, you know, position for the customer.
Yeah. And education is one of our values. And so it's not just about educating people on how to use soak. It's about educating people on how to do business better. Like we make an upsell product, like we're the shoe polish to the shoes. So you want to make more money, you can't sell more shoes, sell everybody shoe polish, right? So, you know, if you add soak onto your transaction, you will make more money per transaction. So we do a lot of educating for our customers on how to make more money in their shops, or how to merchandise in their shops, or how to cross-sell things in their shops. And also in our team, we try to work hard to give people educational opportunities as well. Like, what is it that you want to know about the business that's not under your wheelhouse that you want to learn, right? How do you want to be a better person? How do you want to communicate better? How do you want to train people better? So it's really, how do you want to grow as a person? So for us at Soak, it's as important about how you're going to grow as an individual as it is about how you're going to do the functional tasks of your job. And that's something I'm really leaning into moving forward, because our warehouse team are the people who touch the product before it gets into your hands, right? So they're a very important part of the process, right? Everybody has an opportunity to learn, to grow, to develop. And so we do a lot of training. So it's not just how do you take care of your sweater that you've worn for, we always, the person who's like, oh, I was in Ireland 20 years ago. I bought this beautiful Irish sweater. I've never washed it. Okay. Not only that experience of like what you should feel like when you have a freshly washed, freshly soaked sweater, all the way to, can we help a shop owner make more money in their store, right? Because we're in business. We're not in nonprofit. We're in business. So how can I help you make more money in your store, or a distributor make more money? So that educational aspect, I really love, seeing people kind of learn and benefit from something that we created. It's pretty cool.
That is very cool. How long into your journey did you decide that you wanted to create values for the company?
Well, we started Soak as a secondary product, and we're coming close to our 20th anniversary in 2026. And we sort of have like a loose start date. We kind of had to create one because we didn't really have a finite date, because it kind of evolved from the knitwear business. And in 2008, we actually did a lot of work about like values. That's when we developed the concept of soakworthiness, and what is soakworthy and what does that mean, and actually really giving it a definition and having values and stuff, because we had a goal of what we were trying to do. And then all of a sudden, within a couple of years, the market was kind of reflecting back to us what was important. So 2 years in is when we set a lot of those guiding principles in place. And then I feel like we're kind of going through a little bit of a renaissance in terms of making sure that we're really living those all the way through our whole organization. And then a few years ago, when we started the process of updating our website, we really were looking at what our brand pillars are, what our profiles are, how they're evolving with the marketplace and the industry. We started using post-consumer resin for our bottles in 2012 when it was more expensive and not really readily available. And then people were like, well, why aren't you like talking sustainability more? And I was like, well, because we've been doing that already. That's just what we do, So trying to also figure out like what pillars have longevity versus which ones are trendy.
Yeah. And then it is interesting because although you've been doing it for a long time, what's the like, we're still here and we're still sustainable aspect to, they talk about like how you have to tell people over and over and over again, right?
Yeah, we've not always been the best at telling people over and over again, because we also are consumers and we don't like to get like bombarded. And also, if you don't tell people over and over again, they don't know. And also, like, sometimes you have to look at, I think the things that are interesting for me are like, I make liquid, it's in a plastic bottle. I order 100,000 plastic bottles at a time. I understand that the world does not want more plastic bottles. And also the world doesn't want to pay for glass, and the world doesn't want to transport glass, and the world is not ready for recycling glass right now at the price point and volumes where we are. So there's always this like, what is sustainable, and also what are people willing to pay for, right? And that I think has a lot to do with scale, because I can formulate a wash that is organic and I can't really sell it. You know what I mean? Like people won't pay for it for what it costs. And also we've always been really true to like around sustainability, like real information. There's a lot of greenwashing. I'm sure you've heard that expression. And especially around chemicals. We are chemicals. We go to chemistry class, right? H2O chemical, right? Water is a chemical. So there's this conversation around like what is a chemical, and what is organic and what is sustainable and what is biodegradable and that kind of thing. So we get in those different spaces to try to talk to people and understand truly what things are out. Like, it's a liquid in a bottle. Water needs preservatives, water-based ingredients. That's why like your lipstick is oil-based. It has no water. That's why you can find your grandmother's lipstick and then you can like pick it up and put it on, right? Because there's no water in it. So there's no bacteria developing there, but we need preservatives, and we need a product that's shelf stable because it's going to go in stores and it's going to sit in the window where there's UV light and temperature change and that kind of thing. So there's always this balance between being transparent with what's in the product and how you're marketing it versus still making sure something that can have like a proper P&L where you can actually sell it, right? Because we're all, trying to pay for hockey lessons. What can I say, right? Like, when I first talked and I used to lecture, I used to talk about cat food because, like, when you're single, people assume that you can just like eat ramen and craft dinner and be fine. But if I'm like, I need enough money at the end of the day to buy cat food, they're like, oh, the kitties, like everybody wants the cats to have like good food, right? They're like, you can survive on ramen depending on what you're. But yeah, I used to be like, we need to have enough money at the end of the day to buy cat food.
Yeah. No, I think it's an interesting point about how you find your place in the sea of claims that you could make, and also in what's viable in terms of making real business out of it. And then how you sort of stand by the values that you have to guide you as you make all of those decisions.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of teaching and like post grad stuff on design strategy, and I've worked with the Ontario Crafts Council. I have like a course that I did called From Maker to Making a Living that was like helping people who are on a small scale really understand their pricing and understand what they're doing and that they're actually making money. And it's not from a place of judgment. I'm thrilled if you want to be in business if you make 5 units or 5,000 or 500,000. What I care about is that you understand what you need personally, like financially, to take home for your family or your life, and that your business is meeting those needs, right? So it's not, I'm all for like an organic detergent that costs like $45 for a little amount. And if the person making that can sustain a profitable business doing that, then, have at her.
What have been some of your big challenges as you've grown the business?
So we went through a round of like BC financing in 2008 when I was finishing my MBA. One of the, I did this managing venture growth and transition course, and one of the professors and one of the guests were interested in investing in Soak to help us scale. And to be part of Accurate Statistics, that deal fell through at the 11th and a half hour through no fault of mine, just like an investor change of lifestyle kind of situation. And so that was a big challenge because we had started to scale up. I had hired people, I had got an office, I had done all these things because we were in like 2 years of normal due diligence and everything was almost done. And we signed the papers one way and then they didn't get signed back. So I can remember that day crystal clearly. Not a fun day. But in retrospect, like we worked with our accountant at the time to like get bank financing and to get all these things in place to like deal with all the growth that we had just put in. And then that turned out to kind of be a blessing in disguise because that was right before the 2008 recession. And we had like bank financing and things like that in place for long enough that we were able to sustainably like get through that phase. So it was kind of like a blessing in disguise because I have a lot of friends in that early on phase who had to take like hiatuses from their businesses because they just their loans got pulled or whatever. And so we were able to be up and running enough to keep going through that. Which I think was also really helpful when the pandemic hit because I was like, oof, I'm not doing this twice. So when they listed like all the businesses that could stay open or whatever, I was like, okay, we need to be on that list. Like we need to, whatever it is, we need to figure out how to be on that list that gets to stay open. I was like, because if I have to like shut down, I don't think I can do this again. So we have to like figure out how to stay open,
Yeah, and so you did.
So I think and so we did. Yeah. And I think, because I'm really good with numbers. I love the finance side of the business. I love, I'm always looking at our numbers and our finance. I was able to, we took advantage of a lot of the subsidies and a lot of the wage subsidies and things like that and really dig into like, how are we going to best manage our business to kind of get through this? And also like, getting credit when you don't need credit. That's like my favorite tip, right? When things are good is when you push your like operating line limit, right? Because during the pandemic, it was big and you couldn't do anything, right? But we like scraped, in order to stay up and to keep and to support our business, we scraped the very bottom of that barrel before, coming
and there's
back
no
up.
way you could have gotten that money at that time. You needed to go in already having it in place. That's great advice for other entrepreneurs.
Yeah. I was really surprised at that time by how many fellow entrepreneurs, do not have deep operating lines. That's like my number one advice. Like as deep as you can get. Full stop, right? Like I was really surprised when I talked to people that were like, oh, I only have like a $20,000 operating line or a $40,000 operating line. I was like, no, hundreds of thousands of dollars operating line. Like as push that limit as far as you can get it when you don't need it, so that it's there in case you do.
Yeah, being able to have any kind of forward vision on it as opposed to rear view mirror of like, oh, that broke and it really broke.
Yeah, I mean, I think finding the right people who are comfortable saying, how are we going to do this versus this is how we always did it. You know, we've had a couple of like full staff turnovers over the years, because in the beginning you have generalists who like to do everything. And then as you start to bring in specialists, the generalists don't like to give up parts of their job. And I think that's really challenging for people to understand. Like, I'm bringing in more people so you can do your job better. But they're like, but you're taking away part of my job. I was like, no, I'm really just kind of helping you do what you do best. So I think that's kind of that's always fascinating for me, is because some people are forward looking and some people are not. And that's always a challenge, right? Like, well, that's how we do this. I was like, well, that's how we did it at this scale, but that we're not going to be able to do that at this scale. And that's why one of the reasons I think, you know, we don't have a lot of time right now to like blue sky as a team. Like, I think that's one thing I'm not doing as much of that I used to, or like teaching people like, let's try to figure this out, right? Like, how would we do this if we had 5 times as much volume going through here? Because when you say something crazy like that, then they can't just be like, oh, well, we print it out and we enter it here and we bring it over to that desk and we pile it up there. And I was like, well, not if you had 5 times as much, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the like, you know, you can only run faster for so long before you've got to do things in an entirely new way. So, yeah.
So getting people who are open to doing things in a new way. And I think that's definitely something that we have the luxury of pushing for right now. Because sometimes you don't have the luxury to do what you want to do. Sometimes you're like, I really want to do it this way, but I don't get to, right? And so I think that that's really interesting for me, is to be able to like push through the luxury of like being able to do that, right? So
yes. Yeah. The difference between going through those phases where you're just trying to keep your head above water to the phases where you can actually be like, what if it was 5 times as much? What would that look like? How could we do things? What could we change now to help us be there more easily?
Yeah. And also, like, even with international distributors or customers, like getting to be choosier about who you work with. You know, like I often say now, I'm not teaching anyone how to do their job anymore. You have to come to the table knowing how to do your job well. And it used to be like, I can't afford the person who can do their job well, or
or they don't want to work with me because I'm too small right now.
Too small right now. Yeah, exactly. Right. And then getting that sort of shift of power, I guess, a little bit has been great. I was like, what's the word? I was like, the word is great.
Yeah.
The word is just great.
Yes.
It's great.
And so what's next for you? What's next for Jacqueline, the entrepreneur? What's next for Soak?
Well, we're coming up to our 20th anniversary, so we have a big project on the horizon, which I'm excited about. We just acquired So Fine Thread Gloss, which is a small Canadian company, I don't even know if I have one on my desk near me, but it's a thread gloss for sewing, and it fit really nicely. So I always tell people, like, you can find a new rock to roll up your hill, or you can take your rock and roll it up another hill, but like a new rock and a new hill is a new business, like that classic expression. So thread gloss is like a new rock up our hill. It was a Canadian company that wanted to stay Canadian made, and just couldn't scale. It was a part-time business for someone, an awesome woman named Jen. And she approached us, and it's really, aligned with us from a pricing standpoint, from a care standpoint. It's more on the maker side than the lingerie apparel side, but still a great Canadian story. And we have all those distributors. So now we're just at the beginning of marketing it and getting it back out on a more regular and consistent basis to our customers. So that's exciting. Plus, it was really good learning to do that little acquisition. It was like the right scale. It was a good scale for learning about business acquisition and that kind of thing. And then for me, I'm going to try this year. I don't believe in New Year's resolutions and recapping the year and stuff like that. So try to stay away from that stuff this time of year. But because also our fiscal year is September 1st.
Yes. So it makes sense that you're doing more things at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't like, our customers are predominantly women, and as like avant-garde as we all want to be, most women are dealing with holiday things that do not involve themselves. So we do not peak in Q4. We have a pretty steady business. In the summer where people wear less, you need better lingerie and you wash it more often when you're sweating. And then also in the winter, when you're a maker and you're in your making mode, it's often January, because it's like I do all the stuff for my family or for everybody else in my life over the holidays. And then in January, I like buy my yarn and start knitting or making or doing all those things. So, summer's big for us. January is big for us, like the traditional cleaning, laundry, spring cleaning kind of season, but we're pretty flat. So we don't have a big kind of holiday Q4, but I would like to get back to having more forward planning time, because when you're so busy in the present, you don't have a lot of forward planning. And
you need to do the look up and the pull up, right? Every so often to help you.
I definitely haven't had time to do the look up and pull up recently, because we've been so overwhelmed. And so that's a thing that I definitely have to add in. And we're not like, I'm not like crazy, huge, giant, unattainable goal kind of person. I'm pretty realist. I'm pretty much a realist. So, but I do have some, kind of bigger projects. So, and it's also kind of like balancing the reality of like people and time and hours. Like you can have crazy big goals, but you either require like people or money.
Yes. So it's figuring out how to pace them and what you can do and how to get where you want to go.
Yeah. In my experience, the only true way to like scale faster than that is a huge influx of money, which can bring you more people, right? Because otherwise there's only so many hours in the day. So I'm always kind of toying with that. I'm very, I haven't done a real growth pitch deck plan thing since 2008, since I did it when I was in school. And I definitely feel like I'm due for that. Because I'm not.
Yeah. And that's where the, what if it was 5 times or 10 times bigger, and how would you do things differently really would play out for you in that process.
Yeah, because we do have it's pretty easy from like a sales revenue standpoint with our different distributors and stuff to really map out that growth, but it's another thing to be able to get there quickly. So I do feel like that is on my list of things I want to do. But then again, with the day-to-day of operations, like, I know we don't, sometimes the podcast, you're like sensitive to like what season it is or what date it is. But right now, if we want to timestamp this, President-elect Trump and his US tariff is like, tariff threats are on the horizon. And so for as much time as I want to allocate to like blue skying in the month of December, I'm actually doing risk mitigation analysis, because 60% of our business is in the US. So it's like, I can take the time that's blocked in my calendar to do high growth planning, except like that is unfortunately the first stuff that gets wiped out when you have, these other issues that you have
that come in from the side.
Yeah.
And so it's figuring out how to not get too caught in that it's always issues coming in, right? And to find that balance of swinging in between them.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's one of my kind of personal goals. And also like really just being aware that I have young kids, and, everyone has families, whether they're young, whether they're old, or whether it's just themselves. We're really aware at Soak that people first. We always say family first, and there are no detergent emergencies. And so sometimes you really have to say that to people. So really making sure people, have their time off, get their breaks, do their thing. Because again, we're not, we're doing, I think it's important work and offering an important product to the market. And also like, we're not saving lives. So
finding balance in all the things is a key part.
Yeah.
It's also probably why you've been able to have longevity. It makes a big difference.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think that, we really want, I love being in like a category that has less competitors. And I'm not talking about like traditional detergent. I'm talking about specialty detergent. Because I go to, the knitting trade show and everybody makes yarn. And I was like, well, it could be worse. You could make yarn, I like to, it's a more uphill battle to be in in a smaller category, but I think it's more interesting. You get to be more nimble and you get to have, be a little more creative with it. So I like that aspect of it. So for me, that's part of the fun.
Good. Well, I cannot wait to see where you go from here. And I'm going to look forward with excitement to seeing your 20-year special project
Yeah,
come to
I can't
life.
even believe that. Like, I don't even know how I don't even know how that many years went by. So
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
my pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please remember to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you won't miss any episodes. Figure 8 isn't just a podcast. It's a way of seeing the big, gorgeous goals of women entrepreneurs coming to life. If you're interested in learning more, you can find my book, Big Gorgeous Goals, on Amazon anywhere you might live. For more about my growth and leadership training programs, visit www.julieellis.ca to see how we might work together. Read my blog or sign up to get your free diagnostic. Are you ready for growth? Once again, that's www.julieellis.ca. When we work together, we all win. See you again soon for another episode of Figure 8.